Hey guys, welcome back. Hopefully you had a great day in class today and are ready for this homework assignment. So tonight you've got two different things that you are going to be watching. One is going to be this quick video about order of operations, and then you're also going to be watching a slideshow about the properties. So we are going to jump right in. You have a note sheet in your packet that says order of operations at the top, and then it's got this little set of blocks here. And we're going to fill in these blocks with the different order of operations, and it will help us remember the hierarchy or the order in which we perform mathematical operations. So I will apologize ahead of time for how wonky my blocks look. We all have skills and we all have weaknesses, and maybe drawing is one of my weaknesses along with spelling, which you should already know. Okay, let's jump right in. When we are talking about the order of operations, there are 6 different operations that we are going to consider within this concept. And so I want you to label your boxes in your notes P, E, M and D, and A and S. So we say PEMDAS for short, and we're going to kind of elaborate what each of those stands for. You may have been taught in middle school that this is actually a G for grouping, and if GEMDAS is what you want to roll with, that's totally fine. I'm going to say PEMDAS in class. I'm going to use P instead of G. So if that throws you off, then do it my way. But if you are used to G and you prefer that, it's the exact same thing, so you will not be hurting your comprehension by sticking with that G. So what does the P stand for? We'll start at the top. Remember, this is our hierarchy. This is our list of rules, our list of order that we're going to follow when we are looking at an algebraic expression and trying to solve it when we have to do more than one operation. So the P stands for parentheses. I'm not going to write the word parentheses because I'm probably going to misspell it, and you all know what it is. When you see items inside parentheses, like if you see a set of parentheses and you see 7 plus 3 inside, your first step in solving whatever expression includes something like this is to evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. You're going to perform the operation that you are being asked to perform inside the parentheses. If there's something out here, it's not asking you to distribute first. Don't multiply whatever's outside inside the parentheses. No, that comes later because that's multiplication. It's asking you to perform what's inside. So you're going to do what is inside first. That's always step 1. If there's no parentheses, cool, then we don't even have to worry about it. But we're going to do what's inside first. Okay? The E stands for exponents. So if you have something, let's use the 7 plus 3 as an example. If you've got an exponent, you'll do what's inside the parentheses first. 7 plus 3 we know is 10. And then you will evaluate that for whatever exponent is given. So that's your next step. First, you're going to deal with whatever's inside parentheses. Then if you have any exponents, you will evaluate. So at that point, we would be saying, well, 10 squared, that equals 100. It might be something where you're not inside parentheses. It's just like, 8 squared somewhere in your equation. That's fine too. But your exponent is your next step. And we're going to work through some problems so this will make a little bit more sense. Okay, these two things are kept kind of in a singular vertical because these are finite rules. These are steadfast. We cannot change them. Parentheses always comes first. Exponents always comes next. After that, what's in the block? You've got a little bit more flexibility. M is multiply. Again, my spelling, not the best. D, divide. A, add. And S, subtract. And why do we stack them together like this? Multiplication and division are in the same level of the hierarchy. They come before adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting will always be the last thing in the expression that you go ahead and do. Multiply and divide you're going to do first, but one is not more important than the other. You don't have to multiply before you divide. When you get to, after you have done any operation inside parentheses and then evaluated for any exponents, then you'll look at your equation and you'll read it just like a sentence. You'll read left to right. Whatever multiplication and division you come to first, you go ahead and do that, and then you'll come back to any addition or any subtraction. So let's go ahead and look at some examples because I think that will make this whole idea a little bit more clear. I'm going to give us a little more room on our folder. Okay, and you've got your notes that you just filled in, so you don't need to see these. So we're going to go ahead and work the problem that is on your notes. 15 minus 10 times 2 plus 3 divided by 5. Okay, so first up, we're going to straighten out so we're not bothering anybody. Okay, there we go. You know, top of the pyramid is parentheses. Our first step is to evaluate anything inside parentheses. So we're going to rewrite this as 15 minus 10 times, what's 2 plus 5, or I'm sorry, 2 plus 3, or gave you the answer, is 5, okay, divided by 5. Now, if we had distributed this 10 into the parentheses first, that would have given us 15 minus 20 minus 30 divided by 5. Well, that's a lot different than 15 minus 50 divided by 5. If we had worked out the problem that way, we would have wound up with a much different answer than we will be getting doing it in the correct order. So I know when you see something outside of parentheses and you want to get rid of the parentheses, your first inclination is to distribute. Resist that. Deal with whatever is inside the parentheses first, and then we'll worry about what's outside. So to avoid any confusion, now that we've performed our operation inside, I'm going to rewrite this without the parentheses. You don't have to. This is a matter of preference, but I think when I look over the expression, it's easier to read that as multiplication. Okay, so now we're going to go back up to that block. We've checked for parentheses. We don't have any exponents that we have to evaluate for. So now we're in that multiply, divide, add, subtract block. We are going to read this equation, or this expression rather, left to right. The first thing I come to is subtraction. I have to save that for the end. Adding and subtracting are the second tier of the block. Multiplying and dividing are the first. So since we come to the multiplication first, we will do that action first. And we will perform the multiplication with the number to the left and the number to the right of the sign. So negative 10 times 5 is negative 50. So I'm going to rewrite this as 15 minus 50 divided by 5. We're going to keep reading left to right. We know we have to save that subtraction for the end. So we come to division. That's our next step. We're going to divide the number on the left by the number on the right in reference to the sign. Okay, and what's negative 50 divided by 5? Negative 10. So that means we've got 15 minus 10. Our answer is 5. Had we distributed this from the very beginning, then we would have 15 minus 20 minus 30 divided by 5. Maybe we would have done that division and gotten a negative 6 in there. We would have wound up with negative 11 or something crazy. That's not what we need. We need 5. So we did our parentheses first. We rewrote the equation so we could see our signs, and then we read it left to right, worrying about multiplication and division first, and then addition and subtraction. So we multiplied, then we divided, then we subtracted. Okay, let's try another one. Make sure we've got enough room. Let's do, you don't have this on your notes, so you're going to have to write it in. 10 plus 20 divided by 5 times 10 minus 5. And let's just throw in an exponent just for good measure. Okay, so once again, the first thing we're going to do, the top of our pyramid, I hate to call it a pyramid because it's a stack of blocks. We'll call it a tower, okay? The top of our tower, parentheses. What is inside parentheses? 10 minus 5. That's the first thing we're going to do. And that gives us 10 plus 20 divided by 5 times 5 squared. Now, we don't want to do 5 times 5 squared. We want to evaluate for this exponent first. 5 times 5 squared would give us 25 squared. That would give us 625. That's a huge number, and that's not correct. We want to evaluate for the exponent first, so we're going to say 10 plus 20 divided by 5 times 5 squared, 5 times 5, and you can plug that into your calculator. I'll show you how if you're not sure. 5 times 5 is 25. So now I'm going to rewrite this without the parentheses as to avoid any confusion. 10 plus 20 divided by 5 times 25. Now we're ready to go. We're into that block section, multiply, divide, add, and subtract if we're talking about our tower. So we're going to read left to right. If we start on the left, we get to a plus sign first. We're not going to do this first because we save the adding and the subtracting for the last portion of our tower, the last step. So the next thing we get to is division. We'll go ahead and divide the number to the left of the sign by the number to the right of the sign. And we get 20 divided by 5 is 4 times 25. So now we start again, reading left to right. We're going to hold off on the adding because that's the last step in the hierarchy. But our next sign is multiplication, so we're going to multiply the number on the left of the sign by the number on the right of the sign. We get 10 plus 100. Well, that equals 110. Pretty good, right? Not too bad. Let's try a couple more. What about parentheses 4 squared plus 8 divided by 2? This is pretty straightforward, right? Inside the parentheses, we've got 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16. So inside parentheses, 16 plus 8 divided by 2. We're going to perform the operation that we are being presented with inside the parentheses first. 16 plus 8 is 24. And 24 divided by 2 is 12. Let's get a trickier one in here because I know you guys can handle it. How about 4 plus 2 times 3 minus 6 squared plus 2. All right, so we're going to do what's inside the parentheses first. 4 plus 2, that gives us 6 times 3 minus 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36 plus 2. We're going to perform that addition, and we get 6 times 3 minus 38. It would be helpful if I wrote 38 instead of 36. All right, reading left to right, we get to multiplication first. That's great because we know that we do that before we do subtraction. So we're going to multiply the number on the left of the sign by the number on the right of the sign. And we get 18 minus 38. So what's our answer? 18 minus 38 is negative 20. Okay, I hope this was helpful. The big takeaway here that I want you guys to remember is if we're thinking about that tower, let me scroll back up. All right, if we're thinking about our tower, we always deal with parentheses and exponents first. I'm even going to do this. Parentheses, exponents. That's a little more visual, now we can remember. We deal with parentheses first, exponents second, and then within that block, we read left to right, thinking about the first multiplication or division that I come to is the first thing that I'm going to do once I have exhausted any parentheses and exponents. Then once I deal with all the multiplication and division in the problem, reading it left to right, I go back and do the addition and subtraction. If you guys have any questions, make sure you jot them down in the question sheet of your packet. That way, when we are going over this in class, you know exactly what to ask. You know the drill by now. Great job today, guys.